Down here in Louisiana, history doesn't whisper. It leans in real close and tell you something ain't right. Hey y'all, and welcome back to Bayou and Bullshyt, the podcast where I tell you about Louisiana history the way they definitely didn't teach it in school. I am Shika Denise, and I'll be your guide to Louisiana's real history. I'll help you cut through the bullshit, folklore, and tired ass myths that people love to repeat about my state. Usually, the loudest ones ain't even from here. So grab your sweet tea, your whiskey, or whatever helps you mind your business, and let's get into it. If you're new here, welcome and hello. And if you've been here before, hey friend, did you miss me? Because I sure as hell missed you. It has been a long few months. First and foremost, Happy New Year. Life has been lifing, but your girl is still here. I'm excited to be back telling these stories the way Louisiana intended. Now, before we get into it, I need to let you know about a few changes. From here on out, the Louisiana Sweet Tea segment is getting its own mini episode. Because let's be honest, giving y'all just a snippet of mess, it's fucking boring. Y'all, I gotta give y'all the full rundown of messy business, current business in this state. So moving forward, it'll be more like a mini news segment instead of 30 seconds. Multiple stories, ongoing drama, and we'll come back to them as needed. Child Louisiana never runs out of material. And yes, in the new year, I will be more consistent with episodes. Y'all gotta hold me to it. Now let's get into this Louisiana true crime history. Let me tell you something. When I was a teenager, I fell in love with gangster movies, especially Italian gangster movies. I just love that genre. I love the story of the underdog who tries to go legit, realize that shit ain't working, and decides to boss the fuck up and become powerful, successful, and feared. My favorite gangster movie is Scarface. The irony of that is Tony Montana ain't Italian. He's a Cuban refugee. The crazy part is he's played by an Italian man, Al Pacino. Y'all, it took me years to realize that Al Pacino ain't even Cuban. He Italian. His parents are Sicilian immigrants. He's sort of like an anchor baby for them. And he had already played an Italian gangster, Michael Corleone in The Godfather. Never even saw The Godfather before I saw Scarface. So I didn't know who Al Pacino was until I saw Scarface. But when we're talking about favorite gangster actor, my favorite actor of all time, shit, it's Robert De Niro. Now I know y'all thinking I was gonna say somebody like Samuel L. Jackson, and I ain't gonna lie, he in my top five. But Robert's number one. I mean, Robert got movies like Godfather Part Two, Casino, Goodfellas. More recently, he had The Irishman, which he played a aging. Well, shit, he played for Sharon in most of his fucking life. And anytime a movie says based on a true story, I'm gonna watch that shit. I'm gonna watch it, and then I'm gonna do my research, and then I gotta find out what really happened because movies don't tell you everything, y'all. In watching gangster movies, I started to learn about the American Mafia or Cosa Nostra. Um, I used to watch this shit in my sleep, and then one day I heard about in my sleep, I heard about the New Orleans Mafia family, and I'm like, damn. I don't know why I assumed that my little old state is just a little old state. And this is before I knew anything about, all of our history, us having good history. This is before that. So, I do research. Not really interested as much as I should be because it's Louisiana. New Orleans is right down the street from my house. I stay in Baton Rouge. I grew up here. And then I watched a documentary about the Kennedy assassination and the ties that they have to the South America, United States. And Carlos Marcello kept popping up. Yeah, Carlos Marcello is from New Orleans. So, baby, I'm all in. You telling me somebody from my little old state may have had a hand with the biggest assassination attempt in American history? Ooh, we. Y'all, I am not going to get too much into anything more because let's just go ahead and get into the history of the New Orleans crime family. The first published account of what would later be called the Mafia in the United States go all the way back to 1860s. New Orleans newspapers reported that the city was in the middle of a violent war between Sicilian street gangs. Sicilian organized crime in New Orleans, it did not start big. It started kind of small, like, tight knit groups from the same neighborhood, but they was from the same city in a different country. Their members came from, like, at this time, it's three street gangs: Palermo, Messina, and Trapani. Y'all know I'm not Italian, so some of these words I'm gonna stumble over, some of these names, babe, I'm gonna choke on, but we gonna make it through today. And y'all, of these three gangs, these people wasn't friends. They did not get along. They was fighting and killing each other. They didn't give a fuck about each other. So yeah. The Palermo gang was led by Raphael Agnello, and he was murdered in 1869 during a violent feud with the Messina and Trapani gang who had teamed up to take his ass out. I'm assuming that Palermo was those boys because, yeah, why would they team up against him? They must have was running shit. Okay, so after Raphael's death, his brother Joseph would take over the Palermo gang, but he didn't last long either because he was murdered in 1872. Joseph Agnello's murder brought the end to the gang war that they were having, but the war started back in 1868 after Laterro Barber, the head of the Messina gang, had got killed. I guess they was like, that's probably why they killed your brother, because y'all was out here acting stupid, killing people and stuff. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Now, everything from here on out is alleged. Everything in this episode is alleged. I don't know this shit. I wasn't there, y'all. I'm just looking at stuff that I found in research. So I'm telling you what I read. Okay. But this is alleged. But when the smoke finally cleared, authorities and journalists suspected that one man emerged on top: Joseph P. Macheca. Now, this part is debated, so keep that in mind. Macheca was born in New Orleans in 1843 to Sicilian immigrant parents. On paper, he was a respected politician, a produce importer. He even owned his own steamship line. But allegedly, behind the scenes, Macheca ran a criminal empire with his underboss, Charles Matranga. Together, they were said to control the docks and the French market, the center of the commerce in the city. Around this time, a man named Giuseppe Esposito was arrested in New Orleans by future police chief David Hennessy. Esposito was accused of being a mafia member, though one historian argues that he was nothing more than an Italian bandit. He was just taking people's shit. So, was he a mafia member or was he just a thief? We don't know. So, his death is what brings David Hennessy to the forefront. Now, in the background was the Matranga family. They operated in New Orleans from the late 1800s all the way until Prohibition in 1920. 1920, because we out of the 1800s. And the family was led by brothers Carlo and Antonio Matranga, or Charles and Anthony. Depends on, girl, they got so many names. The Tano, man, they got so many names. We're going to call them Charles and Anthony because that's their American name. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what's on their headstone. So we're going to go with that. Charles and Anthony immigrated from Ustica, just off the coast of Palermo, Italy. Sometime, well, according to their family tree, yeah, I looked all that shit up because I my favorite source, Wikipedia, it had me fucked up. I was like, oh no, oh no, 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 no. So, I looked at um their family tree. The family tree says that they came here in 1856 or 1864. Wikipedia say 1870, which means that they would have been grown by the time that they came, or teenagers, older teenagers. I'm going to go with the earlier date because those were the dates when people started coming over. Once they got settled in New Orleans, the brothers opened up a saloon and a whole house. If you want to be classy, we'll say a brothel. Once their presence was known, the money started coming in, and the Matrongas began collecting tribute payments from the local Italian population. Protection money, if you will. Now, I do want to make note that in one article I read that the Matranga brothers let black people come to their shit. Yeah, they let them, yeah. Because I'm assuming that at this time in New Orleans, just from what I was reading, black people and the Italians kind of got along a little bit. A little bit. Just a little bit. I don't know. I wasn't there, but we gonna say they did because they were almost equals, at least in the eyes of the people who were from the city, white people from the city. Yeah. But anyway, another major source of income comes from the Provenzano family. Now, y'all, this arrangement did not last long. Y'all, um, the Provenzano, like I feel like, okay, so the Macheca, Provenzano, Matranga, whatever, whatever. I don't know if the Matrangas was like, fuck y'all, give me y'all money, or if they was just like, we can give you protection, give me some money. I don't know. So, um, we gonna go with the fact that they said, fuck y'all, give me that money. And the Provenzanos was like, okay, we'll do it for now. All we do is work the docks. So that's what we'll do. And so I guess they kind of, they was trying to take over everything. They wanted all the money. And the Provenzanos was like, hell no. No. No, we're gonna fight y'all for this. So they started a war. And in this war, the police started to pay attention. Now, when I say the police paid attention, um, the police chief in New Orleans from 1888 to 1890 was David Hennessy. Yeah, I remember David Hennessy. He arrested Giuseppe Esposito. Now, mind you, when he arrested Giuseppe, David Hennessy was all of in his mid 20s. Right now, when David Hennessy became police chief, he was 30. Um, I'm not gonna unpack his whole little story because I got a whole part two written and ready to record for him. And y'all, his assassination and subsequent trial and the events after the trial, it needs an episode of its own. I would be here for maybe 2 hours explaining what happened. And I ain't even to the middle of my episode for this. So, um, and I don't think his episode's gonna be like 1,000 years long, but it is he definitely that situation needs its own episode because it's a lot. It's a lot. And so we're gonna just kind of touch on it, but I'm not gonna go into too deep of a. Um David Hennessy's murder sent the city of New Orleans into an uproar. Charles Matranga and several members of his family were arrested, um, according to Wikipedia, but that is not what happened. So the city just arrested some random people, like a lot of random Italian people, and then put them in jail, and then that was it. Um, those men were tried and acquitted. So there were 19 men arrested. 9 of them immediately went to trial. On the following day of the trial, 11 men were executed, lynched, all Italian men. Um, 11 of the 19. 5 people who were killed were they hadn't even been tried yet. So I don't know if you noticed, but my tone got a little somber because reading what happened, and I actually watched a film on what happened. Uh, it's a little emotional, although people, because people gonna say, well, they're Italian and they don't really like black people. I'm not that person. Like, I'm definitely pro black, but I'm also human. Like, that shit, like, there's a 14-year-old boy on trial. That shit's crazy. Okay. So we're gonna move forward before I get into my feelings about all of that. And then we're gonna go ahead and talk about everything that happened. So mind you, at the time that of the Hennessy assassination, where everybody thinks that Joseph P. Macheca is the head of the family. He was one of the people executed in the lynchings. Charles Matranga, however, survived. And he was able to basically take over as head of the family like nothing happened. And this is all on the speculation that Joseph Macheca was the head person before him. By the end of the decade, the Provenzano family, they was the fuck out of New Orleans. Y'all can get y'all ass the fuck up out of here, because man, if y'all watch the movie, and if everything, of course, movies are real and not sometimes. So you gotta be like, did that shit really happen, or is y'all playing? Like, is it dramatized? From what I read in articles, a lot of that movie is not dramatized. A lot of it literally goes based off of articles, newspaper articles, um, just different things. So, man, the movie crazy, but we moving forward. So Charles Matranga was able to escape the lynchings. His brother, I don't think, was put on trial. Because I didn't see his name listed in the people who were I didn't see his brother's name listed in any of the people who were arrested. And that could have a lot to do with the fact that um he had got shot. So I got to talk about that. Prior to David Hennessy getting killed, because this all comes from this shit. Like, I'll talk about it a little bit more. Anthony got killed. Anthony got shot, and he lost his leg. Uh, I want to say 5 months before Hennessy died. So yeah, Hennessy was like, he had some. We'll talk about it in part 2. Let's move forward. So and like I told you, by the end of the decade, the Provenzano family was forced out of New Orleans entirely, and Charles emerged as a dominant figure, and he went on to lead a Black Hand organization. Now, the Black Hand was speculated to be one group, and it was not. So, if you know about Cosa Nostra or the Commission, you know that they are one group. One is basically like a big old group with a bunch of different branches, and that is not what the Black Hand was. The Black Hand was just basically an adjective. Um, it was a method. So it was the method of extortion, and then they just used it in Italian American neighborhoods from the early 1900s to the prohibition through the 1920s. Now, they had Black Hand in New York, Chicago, different big cities too. They had Black Hand organizations. So, um, Charles nor Anthony died a violent death. They just eventually stepped away from power, and we'll just talk about more about their later life. Um, we'll wrap up their later life in part two. Now, now that the Matronga era is coming to a close, power in New Orleans didn't just disappear. It kind of just changed hands. So Matronga stepped away from power and handed over leadership to Corrado Giancana, and he was the boss of the family from 1922 until 1944, and he died at the age of 69. His underboss, Frank Tadaro, took over, but he only lasted 4 months before he died himself. The official cause of death is natural. Unofficial whispers say that Silvestro Carolo may have poisoned him. Y'all know this is where we meet Silver Dollar Sam. Now, Silvestro Carolo, who I will not call Sam because I'm not going to keep on trying to speak like I'm Italian. But Silver Dollar Sam is kind of where, you know how you have those famous mafia figures that we all know about? He's one of those. The crazy part is the man wasn't even in power that long. So, um, Sam was born June 17th, 1896 in Terracina, Italy, and that is 3 days after my birthday. Sam a Gemini. He crazy. Y'all, Sam immigrated to the US in 1903 and he was, with his parents in the French Quarter. If I'm not mistaken, he was about 7 years old. By 1918, which was 15 years later, he was already a high ranking member of that Black Hand gang we talked about, or the Matronga crime family. Now, when Charles stepped away, Sam became the street boss, and Corrado Giancana served as the official boss. At this point, it is not clear yet just how powerful Corolla was about to become. Now, here's where things get interesting. I feel like February is a bad month for Al Capone because they go killing people and people do stuff to them. So Al Capone sent his brother Ralph down here to basically kind of step on Sam's toes and be like, well, like I told you, Corrado is the boss, but Sam is the street boss. So he like you gotta go through me to get to the boss boss. So they come here, they basically telling Sam, you gotta cut this motherfucker off Joe Ailo, and he don't get him no more liquor, and then supply us, like trying to strong arm him. And Sam was like, absolutely the fuck not. You don't come down here and tell me what to do. And y'all, police ain't changed. Now, mind you, this is about what 40 years after David Hennessy's murder. So the police are getting paid. Y'all, they met Ralph and his men and broke they fucking fingers. Now, I don't know specifically if Ralph got his fingers broke, but I do know that some people got their fingers broke, went back to Chicago empty handed. And Sam was like, call me before you come. Don't bring your ass back down here unless you make your presence known, and I'll tell you whether you could be here or not. Mind you, Sam ain't no big old, like, these ain't like New Orleans family ain't loud. They just letting you know what it is. By 1930, Sam's name was everywhere. That year, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics agent Clarence Moore was shot in his face during an attempted arrest. Yeah, they tried to arrest Sam. Sam shot somebody allegedly. He allegedly shot him in the face. And yeah, the shooting was only near fatal because Clarence ain't died. Sorry, Clarence. I hope I hope you were able to heal from that. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's passed on by now, but sorry, 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 Clarence. But anyway, Sam was convicted of resisting the arrest and he was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison. Y'all, 2 years ain't shit for shooting somebody in the face. Shh. Now, police testimony did place him in New York at the time, but yeah, that ain't work. They gave him them 2 years anyway. And then the same year, Corolla was they say he ordered the murder of a former police officer, William Bailey. Now, y'all, if I say New Orleans police are grimy, and then you got William Bailey, funky nasty ass, sitting up here acting like he uh he just now y'all, he was stealing people's liquor. He was a liquor hijacker, and he was widely believed to be a criminal informant. So he was stealing people's shit, telling on people to take their shit. I don't like that shit. But before dying in the hospital, Bailey identified his attackers as members of Carolo's gang. And let's be honest, ain't nobody rushing to defend no person that's stealing or whatever. And then he might even be lying about Carolo's gang trying to kill him. Unless you was trying to take their shit. I mean, whew, don't take my shit. Don't put shit down. Anyway, Stan would be released from prison in 1934, but immediately my boy went back to business. He negotiated a deal with the Luciano family, which would become the Genovese family. And we talking about Frank Costello. Um, and then this, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Frank Costello is either the street boss or the leader. I mean, the underboss or the leader at the time. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna go look that up because we ain't talking about that. We talking about Louisiana. But a very important person that helped these motherfuckers in Louisiana, in New Orleans, was the former governor, Louisiana Senator Huey P. Long. Yeah. So Huey set up some shit for these motherfuckers to bring illegal slot machines to New Orleans because New York Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia was cracking down on the mob gambling, and New Orleans was seen as a safer option because they act like New Orleans don't got no motherfucking home training. It probably was easy to just get away because, hey, New Orleans kind of similar to Vegas. What happens if you know? But anyway, Sam and his lieutenant Carlos Marcello ran gambling operations undisturbed for years. By the late 1930s, another narcotics arrest signaled the beginning of Sam's decline. In 1940, after serving time in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, a court ordered Sam to be deported to Italy. The order was delayed the following year when fascist Italy declared war on the United States, and it allowed Sam to continue running the family throughout World War II. Um, in 1947, though, 7 years after the original order, Sam was finally sent back into Italy. Control of his family was passed to Carlos Marcello, and Sam will return to the U.S. more than once because he basically was like, "I'm here," and they'll be like, "Take your ass back," and he'll say, "I'm back again. Take your ass back." So he could just come and visit. But let me tell you how my boy ended up staying. Y'all, he got arrested in Italy in 1952 though, because they say he was swindling and selling dope. But he lived in Palermo for two more decades. Now, in 1970, he returned to the U.S. one final time to help mediate disputes within the family at Marcello's request. Sam died June 26, 1970, in New Orleans, y'all. He was able to get buried in New Orleans. I think Sam knew he was dying, and he was like, "They not burying me in Italy. I'm gonna bury you. They gonna bury me where I'm from." He might be from Italy, but he from New Orleans. He is New Orleans, okay? But he is buried in Metairie Cemetery, just like many of the men who shaped New Orleans criminal history. Shit, people who shaped New Orleans is buried in Metairie Cemetery. I mean, and as for Sam's son Anthony, his story does not end here. But before we get into that, we gotta talk about Carlos Marcello. Calogero Minocore was born February the 6th, 1910, to Sicilian immigrants living in the North African country of Tunisia. In 1911, Carlos's family immigrated to Louisiana, settling in Jefferson Parish. And no, before somebody say it, Jefferson Parish is not New Orleans. It's two different places. It's two different places. Jefferson Parish is Kenner, Metairie, Gretna, Harvey. That shit over there. New Orleans is New Orleans. Okay? Thank you. As a young boy and teenager, Marcello spent plenty of time in New Orleans, especially in the French Quarter. He started committing crimes early. I don't know why. Carlos was just acting up. But by 1938, he was 28 years old and he was arrested for selling 23 pounds of marijuana. He got a fine. The fine, $76,830. Now, that might not be a lot of money to y'all, but that is a lot of money to me today. And just to be clear, I'm going to put it in today's term. That was $76,000 in that time. In this time, that is $1.6 million, almost $2 million. That's the kind of hit that could bring it, it could make a legit business bankrupt. So, I mean, yeah. But thanks to our good old governor, Huey P. Long, Marcello served only 10 months and walked away paying about $400, $10,000 to $12,000 today, which is still a lot of money to me today. But by the end of 1947, Carlos was um Carlos was in a Carlos was the man, and now I be the man. He joined forces with Maya Lansky and started skimming profits from casinos in the New Orleans area. According to former Chicago outfit members, I think he was just I think they were still mad about their fingers getting broke. Marcello was supposedly also receiving money from Las Vegas casinos in exchange for providing muscle in Florida real estate deals. So, uh, Carlos, what you doing in Florida? Bring your ass back. Come on, come back to New Orleans. Come on. By this point, Carlos is the godfather of New Orleans, and he will hold that position for the next 30 years or so. That's all. All right, Carlos, now what you doing? Over the years, Carlos's name would surface in conversations tied to national politics and one of the most scrutinized, famous moments in American history, the Kennedy assassination. But just like David Hennessy, John F. Kennedy deserves an episode of his own. And it's the only way that I could talk about something that I really like to talk about. That's the Kennedy assassination. And I gotta make sure when I write that rabbit hole down that I write it down to where I won't have y'all here y'all whole life. Because I could talk about it. Okay. But in the summer of 1966, Marcello was summoned to La Stella restaurant in Queens, New York. A secret mafia meeting, later known as Little Appalachian, was being bought. It was being called. So there was also an Appalachian, and that happened like in the 1950s. So probably about 10 years before. Um, but just so happens that at this meeting, Marcello, y'all, the meeting got raided, and Marcello and 12 people got arrested. Carlo Gambino being one of them. And if you know about the Gambino crime family, that's John Gotti's crime family. So they say. It's a link. So when Carlos came back to New Orleans after after he was able to bond out, y'all, Carlos walked in the airport, looked at everybody, and said, I am the boss here. Then he punched a fucking FBI agent. What is wrong? Carlos, what is wrong with you? Why would you do that? Yeah, for the offense, he was sentenced to 2 years. Everybody get 2 years. You get shot in the face, punched in the face, you just get 2 years. Okay. But he only served 6 months. 6 months in federal prison? Y'all is crazy. So by the late 1960s, the New Orleans crime family was supposedly small. They say maybe 4 or 5 made men. Everybody was lying. We don't know. We wasn't. But they had a dozen of powerful associates. Size don't matter. Carlos had deep connections to judges, prosecutors, governors, senators, labor leaders, and law enforcement. He also worked closely with the Dixie Mafia and the Outlaws Motorcycle Club, outsourcing debt collections and contract killings. And just to let y'all know, just because I'm doing an episode on the New Orleans crime family, don't mean I'm not gonna do one on the Dixie Mafia, even though they were founded in Mississippi. I'm still gonna do it. Why you gonna do it? Because they operated in Louisiana. Dang yeah. Okay. But in 1981, Marcello got indicted in a FBI Brelab investigation. It was a corruption probe that involved the state officials and multi-million-dollar insurance contract. Now, I feel like I want to talk a little bit about Brelab. I feel like I do. And so, just a little bit about Brelab. It refers to the major FBI undercover sting operation in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The code name was for bribery, labor, racketeering, and it targeted corrupt government officials and organized crime figures in the South, particularly in Louisiana and Texas. Um, it led to the trials and convictions of Carlos and other people in the South. So, I'm trying not to watch no videos. I was just trying to see if I could find like a quick article about it so that I could read. Anyway, so this basically the key aspects of the Bree Lab scandal. And I get this from Google. I'm not I'm not I ain't writing nothing down. I didn't go into FBI files and I don't know. So this is strictly from Google. It says the key aspects of the Bree Lab scandal. The FBI operation was undercover agents posed as insurance salesmen working with informant Joseph Hauser. He was a convicted swindler to offer bribes for lucrative state insurance contracts. The target was Louisiana's reputed mafia boss, Marcello, former state commissioner of administration, Charles Romer, who I think is Buddy Romer's father, and state House Speaker Billy Wayne Clayton, Texas House Speaker. Texas House Speaker. Officials accepted cash to influence the awarding of multi-million dollar state health insurance contracts. The outcome: Marcello and Romer were convicted of conspiracy and fraud in Louisiana. Billy Clayton was acquitted in Texas, though the scandal sparked significant political reform. Other defendants, various others, were indicted, tried, and either convicted. Brelab exposed widespread public corruption, leading to landmark trials and reshaping Texas politics towards greater transparency, and demonstrated the reach of organized crime into government. They probably still in there. Moving forward. um, I got to get back to my notes because I baby. Huh. But anyway, y'all, Carlos got convicted. Carlos went to jail. Carlo Marcello, his era still didn't come to an end, even though he was in jail. He handed over leadership to basically when he got sick and he was in prison, baby, the people started acting up in the street. His younger brother Joseph had took over the family once he got to jail. But y'all, people ain't respect Joseph. They felt like he wasn't built for the business. And his other, Carlos' other brothers, Vincent, Sammy, and Anthony, they focused on the slot machine businesses. And Peter and Pascal, his older brothers, they kind of just stepped away from the life altogether. Now, I do want to talk about Little Joe. Little Joe died recently. And when I say Little Joe is Marcello's son. So to distinguish him from his uncle, I guess they called him Little Joe. But Y'all, Little Joe was that boy. Little Joe went to Holy Cross High School. He graduated from Tulane University or UNO. I can't remember. It's one of the New Orleans colleges he graduated from. But my boy was a real estate tycoon. I'm talking about he was a multimillionaire, legitimate businessman. He never went into the family. There's no proof. So if you say he was in a family, y'all don't fucking know. Y'all show me proof. But rest in peace, Little Joe. Little Joe died uh in September of 2025. He was 83 years old. So he's proof that the mob, the mob boss's kid can go straight. They ain't gotta be in the family. But even in decline, that Marcello name still carry weight. And in 1982, Joseph Marcello Jr., Uncle Joe, was indicted for lying to a grand jury investigating the assassination of Texas federal judge John H. Wood, a killing tied to an associate of the Marcello family, Jamiel Jimmy Chagra. By the end of the 1980s, cracks were showing everywhere. Um, Two longtime French Quarter figures, Frank Karachi and Nick Carno, started moving independently, refusing to answer to Marcello's leadership, and they openly courted outside families, including the Gambino family and the Philadelphia mob. That was new and dangerous. But by 1990, the torch was officially passed to Anthony Carollo, the son of Silver Dollar Sam. And Anthony didn't waste no time syncing back up with the big dog. He and his associate, Sebastiano Salvatore, met in New York with John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano, looking for help carving into Louisiana's newly legalized video poker industry. Permission was granted, but lines were crossed, and the feds were already listening. In 1993, the FBI bugged Frank's Deli in the French Quarter, a favorite hangout for the New Orleans mafiosi, and captured wiretaps that exposed just how loose, fractured, and vulnerable the family had become. And in 1994, it all came crashing down. Operation Hard Crust. They said something about pizza or something like that. I don't know shit. Why would they name it that? I feel like they just so disrespectful to these people's lineage. But 16 arrests across the Marcello, Gambino, and just Genovese families. Racketeering, illegal gambling, conspiracy, all tied back to those fucking video poker machines. Yeah, yeah. So by 1996, Anthony Carollo and his underboss Frank Gagliano were sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Well, they got one more year than everybody else. But everybody else was getting 2 years. And just like that, the New Orleans crime family, once quiet, protected, and deeply entrenched, was finished. Oh. As for today, officially, the crime family doesn't exist. Unofficially, Louisiana ain't never been big on official answers. So when people think about the mafia, they picture New York, loud, flashy, everybody yelling. But in New Orleans, they move different. The New Orleans crime family wasn't built on headlines. It was built on patience and silence, on who you knew, who owed you, and who wasn't asking too many questions. From the Matrongas running the docks to Silver Dollar Sam playing chess when everybody else was playing checkers, to Carlos Marcello pulling strings from the shadows. Power in New Orleans didn't need to be loud to be deadly. And when it finally unraveled, it didn't explode. It just faded. Federal indictment, wiretap, prison time, legit businesses taking over what used to be rackets. That's the thing about Louisiana. The mess don't always end up with blood in the street. Sometimes it ends with a court date, a closed door, and a whole lot of people pretending they don't remember shit. But don't get it twisted. The legacy is still here. In the French Quarter, on the dock, in the politics, in the rumors folks whisper but never write down. Because around here, history don't disappear. It just learns to behave. All right, bullshit mafia. That's a wrap for today. If you rocked with this episode, make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast. It really helps your girl out. And don't be strangers. Go search for me on all social media. Bayou and Bullshyt Podcast. That's Bayou like the swamp and Bullshyt with a Y. Don't forget it. And if you really love what I'm doing and want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the bio. Come join the Bullshyt Mafia because we keep it real, we keep it messy, and we always tell the story like it is. Until next time, stay curious, stay loud, and don't believe everything you hear. Well, unless you heard it here. Back that you wanna talk.